UFC 302 took place at the weekend, and I'm not going to lie to you, this card was pretty shit. For the first time in I don't know how long, we didn't have any knockouts in the full card. We did have some submissions, and a great submission in the main event, which I'm going to dig into in this video. It wasn't to be for Dustin Poirier. I made a video last week talking about could he finish the story. This was the all-important moment for Dustin Poirier and the pinnacle moment of his career, and he did go out there with a fight. He put on a really good fight against Islam Makhachev, but it just wasn't to be. I'm going to be looking at what I thought of that fight in this video, and I'll also be giving you what I think Islam Makhachev should do next. I'll also be looking at the co-main event on Saturday night, Sean Strickland against Paulo Costa. There's not too much to discuss with this fight. It wasn't a great fight. It was kind of a point scoring match for Strickland. He won a very comfortable decision in the end. So at the end of the video, I'm just going to be touching on what I think Sean Strickland should do next, and it might surprise you. Make sure that if you enjoy this content to like, share and subscribe to Barney Talks Fighting. I'm up to 70 subscribers and I would like to get to 100 within the next couple of months, so if you could please hit the subscribe button and help support the channel, that is much appreciated. So without further ado, we'll get into today's video.
Shut up and sit down.
So the first round of this fight started, and it couldn't have went any worse really for Dustin Poirier. I was sitting watching it and I thought to myself, this is it. It hasn't lasted long at all. It basically took 30 seconds for Islam Makhachev to get a takedown on Dustin Poirier, and in the 30 seconds before he got the takedown, he was landing the more significant strikes on the feet, and he was out striking Dustin Poirier, and he then goes to take him down. Dustin Poirier done really well at not getting subbed here within this first round, because Islam Makhachev was setting up so many traps and he was trying all the tricks of the trade in order to get Dustin Poirier just to give his neck up for a half a second. That's all Islam Makhachev would have needed. But Dustin done well. He was hand fighting. Islam Makhachev managed to take his back after a nasty Kimura. So first of all, he slips out of the Kimura. Islam manages to take his back, and then Dustin is hand fighting and tucking the chin for days. This was a long 3 minutes. I never thought this 3 minutes was going to end. It just kept going in very, very slowly, and I just kept hoping that Dustin would be able to see the round out and get back onto his feet. Islam Makhachev has been very smart too in the first round when he was on the back of Dustin. He kept setting traps. He was smothering Dustin's mouth, or he was covering Dustin's mouth and smothering him, and as well as that, he kept pretending to go to mount, and as soon as he pretended to go to mount, it would just get a quick reaction out of Dustin. He would drop the hands, and that's when Islam would try and lock in the rear naked choke. But Dustin done very, very well hand fighting, managed to get to the end of the round. But then we move into round two, and this was a much better round for Dustin, and this round really filled me with hope after seeing it, because Dustin managed to stuff, I think it was 3 takedowns in round two. He managed to stuff Islam Makhachev, and that is not easy done. You can see Dustin had been working on his takedown defense for this fight. There was people saying that they thought Dustin won this round, although I don't agree. I still think, even though this round took place on the feet, I still think Islam was out striking Dustin and landing the more significant strikes, which is completely scary. The fact that Islam Makhachev was able to take Dustin down and maul him in the way he did in the first round, and then the second round he can't take him down, but he can match him on the feet. Islam Makhachev might be the most well-rounded champion that we have at the moment. He's unbelievable on the feet and on the ground, and he's much better on the feet than what Khabib ever was. Islam Makhachev was very, very dangerous in the clinch position. He kept landing them knees up the middle, which was just landing on Dustin. Dustin is a very good counter boxer, and he's very good at the dirty boxing. When they're in close and they were breaking from the clinch, Dustin, he did land a couple of shots, and this is the shot that I thought Dustin would have had to have landed in order to win this fight. This was how I seen him winning the fight. If he did win it, was through one of these shots as they broke from the clinch. Round 3 then comes in, and it was quite an interesting round. It was pretty similar to before. Islam Makhachev manages to cut Dustin open. I do think it was a head clash. It did look like his head comes up and catches Dustin on the nose, although he does land a dig very, very closely after it. So it looks like Dustin's nose is broke after this. His nose was a bit wonky and out of shape, and of course the blood is pissing from him as well. But this was a really good round, and you see Dustin walking Islam down and shouting at him. This was a great moment, and it was at this moment I thought to myself, I started hearing shine bright like a diamond. I thought it was going to happen, and I says to myself, Dustin's going to fucking do this. He's going to do it again. But it wasn't to be. Apart from this time, Dustin Poirier, I feel he didn't really push Islam back enough. He didn't put him on the back foot. Dustin Poirier is a brilliant counter boxer, but with someone like Islam Makhachev, you have to try and push him back. I know he was always wary of the takedowns, and the fact that he did fight on the back foot a bit is probably why he was able to defend so many takedowns. But for me, if Dustin Poirier was going to have a chance at knocking Islam out, he really had to try and land more volume than him and catch him with something that he wasn't expecting, but he just didn't land enough volume. So round 4 begins. Dustin Poirier, he lands a nice elbow up the middle, which cuts Islam Makhachev. Dustin Poirier really did make Islam bring the dog out in him here. This was not an easy fight by any means. He was pretty comfortable the whole way, but there was always that threat from Dustin Poirier, and in round 4 we seen that. That was a pretty nasty cut that he managed to land on Islam Makhachev, and we can see after the fight Islam Makhachev's face was pretty beat up after. So round 5 begins. Islam Makhachev shoots for the single leg and he's holding on to the ankle of Dustin Poirier. And this was so intelligent. The IQ here to do this from Islam Makhachev. He knows Dustin Poirier is going to try and swing at him. And as soon as Dustin lifts that hand to swing at him, you can see Islam Makhachev, he cups the foot or the ankle of Dustin Poirier and swings it round, and it's kind of like a leg drag. And as soon as Dustin Poirier hits the ground, he pounces on him like a cat. And Islam Makhachev really did punish him here. He goes to land the guillotine, he uses it to get top position. Once he gets top position, he locks in the darce choke, and it's 9-8 from there. Dustin Poirier taps and goes to sleep. This was unbelievable. Imagine the squeeze Islam Makhachev has on his arms. We've seen him do this to Oliveira as well. It seems to not take much squeeze at all for Islam Makhachev to put you out. So this concludes the fight, and Islam Makhachev remains lightweight champion of the world, and Dustin Poirier cannot finish his story. My conclusion from this fight is that Islam Makhachev's striking is as good as anyone else in the lightweight division. He's outstruck now Dustin Poirier and Volkanovski. He has beat them at their own game, which is unbelievable. And another conclusion I'll take is that Islam Makhachev's wrestling isn't actually as good as what Khabib's was, and I don't think it is as good as what everyone thinks. Yes, he took the back of Dustin Poirier and lay on it for so long, but we've seen both Dustin Poirier and Volkanovski. These are two guys who are not known for their wrestling. These are two guys that are very good at defensive wrestling, but you don't really see these guys picking up wins because of their offensive wrestling. It's always their stuff and takedowns, and they're very good at that. But they both had great success against Islam Makhachev at his own game. Which other guys in the lightweight division, if you're a really good striker in the lightweight division, you must be looking at that and thinking, if I drill my takedown defense enough, I think I have Islam on the feet, and they will think that he is beatable. Islam Makhachev is not some mysterious figure that is completely unbeatable, which is the way I think people look at him sometimes. Volkanovski gave him a good go in their first fight. The second fight, don't get me wrong, he took it in late notice, and I think that had a big part to play in it. Dustin Poirier managed to give him a very good go here. I do think Islam Makhachev is beatable at lightweight. It just wasn't to be. It just wasn't to be for Dustin. He'll never be the lightweight champion, but he is one hell of a man and an absolute legend of the sport. If you're a fan of Dustin Poirier, make sure and check out the video I done on the run up to this last week. I'll take about 10 minutes at the start of the video and do a quick run through Dustin Poirier's story and the career so far. So if you're a fan of Dustin Poirier, go and check it out. It's definitely worth watching. Poirier did flirt with the idea of retirement before and after this fight. This is something that you can't really blame Dustin Poirier for if he does want to retire, because he always says he's a family man and he has made the money in fighting. He's had the red panty night, he's had McGregor. That was definitely his last shot at the title, so he's not going to get the title. What is there for Dustin Poirier to fight in? There's some super fights you could have, you know. I could see Volkanovski stepping up and fighting the likes of Dustin Poirier. This would be an unbelievable fight, maybe for a BMF belt, but he's had a shot at that too, so it's just hard to see what Dustin Poirier can do next that will really excite him. Don't get me wrong, I would hate to see Poirier retire, but at this stage of his career, why not? What else is he fighting for if it's not for the money, and he can't really build his legacy too much more? What is the point in him getting in there and really putting himself through that brutal weight cuts and the brutal conditions and training of what it takes to be a UFC fighter at the top level? For Islam Makhachev, I really hope this guy doesn't move up. This really fucking pissed me off here on Saturday night. Straight after he's talking about moving up to welterweight. Fighters are moving up too quick these days. They've seen Volkanovski and Alex Pereira do it. Two guys that have wiped out the division they were in. Islam Makhachev is a good contender in Arman Tazuki and waiting for his shot at the title. I would like to see a bit more activity from Islam Makhachev. Let's look at the last time he fought was the second Volkanovski fight. Volkanovski took that fight in 10 days notice, and since that Volkanovski has fought to Poirier and been knocked out as well. Islam Makhachev is too inactive for me. He's too inactive to hold a title in the most stacked weight division in the company, but you've got one of the most inactive fighters holding the title, which is really, really frustrating. Another reason why I don't want to see Islam step up yet and fight for their welterweight title is the fact that there's plenty of contenders at welterweight. We've got Shavkat Rakhmonov, we've got Jack Della Maddalena, just to name two that's coming up through that division, as well as Bilal Muhammad and Leon Edwards fighting for the title in UFC Manchester. There is no need for Islam Makhachev to be stepping up and fighting for that welterweight title yet. The other reason why I want to see Islam Makhachev defend this title at least one more time is the fact that he hasn't even defended this title against a genuine lightweight contender yet. Dustin Poirier did not deserve this title shot. Yes, he deserved it because of the career that he had, but based on his last performances, he got a win against Benoit Saint-Denis, which I discussed in my last video, and I said he was getting beat in the first round, and yes, he caught Benoit Saint-Denis and it worked out well for him, but that could have went any different way, and it wasn't as if Dustin Poirier had a dominant performance. The fight before that, he got beat by Justin Gaethje for the BMF. Dustin Poirier didn't really do enough to deserve this title shot. The only reason he got it was because Arman Tsarukian didn't want the shot yet, and Oliveira wasn't available either, so it was just the way it all played out that Dustin Poirier got this shot. But was he a #1 contender in the prime of his life? No way it wasn't, but Arman Tsarukian is. So this is why Islam should fight Arman Tsarukian before moving up. And as well as this, even before we seen Dustin Poirier fighting Islam for the title, it was Volkanovski twice. Again, it wasn't a lightweight contender, it was Volkanovski, a featherweight who had stepped up to lightweight for the first time to fight for the title. If the UFC lets Islam move up and fight for the welterweight title, that is a bit of Dagestani privilege right there, and I will be really pissed off, and I think it'll put a big dampener on the lightweight and the welterweight division. I think Leon Edwards beats him anyway, don't get me wrong. I think Leon Edwards lights Islam up on the feet, and I think he'll be a bit too big for him. And we've seen Leon Edwards out wrestling Colby Covington and Kamaru Usman. Islam Makhachev has been shown to not have the best wrestling in the world. If guys like Volkanovski and Dustin Poirier can stuff their takedowns and out wrestle him, I guarantee Leon Edwards will do it too. So for me, it has to be Islam Makhachev and Arman Tsarukian next, and I do think the UFC will do this. They had Arman Tsarukian in the front row, so although Islam Makhachev is calling for the Leon Edwards fight, I'll be surprised if the UFC sanction it and let them do that before fighting Tsarukian. So let's move on to the co-main event. What do you guys think Sean Strickland should do next? I think this is a discussion which has been happening, and it's quite an interesting one. I think Sean Strickland deserves another title shot, to be honest. Sean Strickland beat Israel Adesanya for the title, fair and square. Absolutely dominated Israel Adesanya. He goes out against Dricus du Plessis and loses a decision which could have went any way. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that fight was a robbery, but there's many a knowledge person who thinks that Sean Strickland won that fight, and one judge gave it to Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland deserved a rematch after that fight. Sean Strickland deserves to be fighting Dricus du Plessis ahead of Israel Adesanya. Israel Adesanya should not be coming straight back in for a title shot. He has been beat twice in his last 3 fights for the title, and he's getting a title shot ahead of Sean Strickland. I don't think this is right, and I think they're looking at Israel Adesanya because he is a big pay-per-view star. Sean Strickland talks a lot of shit, and he is not the most PC and the most company-friendly guy they have as your middleweight champion. But the UFC is a sport based on meritocracy. People shouldn't be getting title shots because they're a more attractive champion than someone else. Everyone should be calling for Sean Strickland to get a title shot here, and it's completely wrong that he's not. But it looks like the UFC, they're going to do Adesanya and Dricus du Plessis on, I think it was UFC 306 in Perth. It's looking likely that is going to be the fight that will happen for the middleweight title. The Strickland Costa fight itself, it wasn't too great, to be honest. There was a lot of points scored. Paulo Costa has come out and acknowledged this after, but he was trying to point score against one of the best point scorers in the whole of the UFC. Sean Strickland, that slow style of fighting, he can play the Philly shell, he can pick your punches up, he can read the tempo, and he's better at this than anyone in the whole roster, in my opinion. So the fact that Costa just allowed him to do this, Sean Strickland was always going to ride out a very comfortable decision win in the end. Let me know in the comments what you guys think Sean Strickland, Islam Makhachev and Dustin Poirier should all do next. Thank you so far for all of the support on the videos, it's greatly appreciated. Make sure to like, share and subscribe, and hit the bell so you get a notification when my next video goes live. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.